Welcome to Movement Monday here on Heart of a Volunteer Veterans Podcast with your host, Daniel Hurd. Dan has been cycling one paddle at a time through 44 of the lower 48 states, nearly 18,000 miles and thousands of engagements to break the stigma of suicide. Join Dan as he engages in conversations with guests that are on their own movement to influence positive change and bring hope. Again, welcome and enjoy the episode.
Watch your thoughts. They become your words. Watch your words. They become your actions. Watch your actions. They become your habits. Watch your habits. They become your character. Watch your character. It becomes your destiny. Lao Tzu, ancient Chinese philosopher and writer. Welcome back to another episode of Movement Monday. Dan here. What are the consequences of our habits? There are good and bad habits, and sometimes those patterns turn into addictions. I've been thinking a lot about the role they play in our behavior, primarily because I'd like to develop a healthier lifestyle. A pattern that changed and saved my life was cycling. I'd like to think of this as a good addiction. Unlike drinking alcohol, which is a hard addiction to break, people try to quit and fail. I personally failed many times. Out of routine, I would get something to drink on my way to go hang out with friends, or with a meal when I went out to eat. I was finally successful at breaking the first of many habits that were bad for me over 8 years ago. Our co-host today has overcome similar ones. After almost losing everything, he looked at how his own habits affected his life and began the process of change. Our co-host today is Air Force veteran JT Frank. He is the founder and host of the Consequence of Habit podcast, where he explores how habits relate to happiness and success, or lack thereof. Talking to others who have made massive changes to their lives by changing their habits. And he is currently developing a nonprofit organization under the same name to help veterans, first responders, and others struggling with addiction or bad habits to get them into better lifestyles. JT, it's an honor to have you on Movement Monday. Welcome.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on, Dan.
Yeah, I had to definitely have you come on, especially after one, being on your podcast, and two, learning about your podcast through Mason from Adventure Sports Podcast.
Yeah. I tell you, yours, the one that you came on, because it's the one. I mean, I put it out right before your accident, literally right before your accident.
2 days.
So, yeah. So after it came on, and then you had sent me pictures from it. And people had reached out to me like, hey, man, that's a great story. And then it was just, I mean, not that I want you to be in an accident, but like I immediately would send the pictures. I'm like, this is what happened since I talked to him. They're like, holy shit. So, yeah, it was just weird timing.
Yeah, it was definitely weird timing. But it was, as well, it was perfect timing. We had the opportunity to have that conversation while I was still on my mission. So I think that made it that more impactful for people to hear. I think that if it happened after it, it'd still be impactful, but I don't think it would have been as impactful.
Agreed.
So, no, but hey, one of the things that I definitely was intrigued when I was listening to your guys' episode with Mason was you guys were talking about Athletic Brewing Company.
Yes.
And it was ironic to me because just a couple days before that, a friend of mine, at that point, I was just about to hit 8 years alcohol-free for myself. And a friend of mine was like, he saw that I was drinking these non-alcoholic beers, like I think it was like Bush and all these other crazy ones that they're not that great. And he's like, hey, man, you should check out Athletic Brewing. And I was like, oh, man, I'll check it out at some point. And then literally a couple days later, I hear you guys talking about it. And I find out that you guys are involved in it in various ways. And I was so intrigued. I immediately was like, I got to get some of this stuff. I got to try it out.
Yeah, this stuff it's been a game changer for me. I don't have as much sober time as you do. I'm just coming up on 2 years, but when I got away from drinking, when I was drinking, I really enjoyed beer, and I enjoyed good beer. Like I enjoyed like craft beer, and I was really disappointed when alcohol didn't fit into my life. And I'm like, God, man, I really miss it. and I would go to parties, and I would go to different places, and I would see all my friends, and they're having some of the same things I used to love to drink, and truly for the taste as well as the alcohol. But Athletic Brewing, they literally have designed an entire line of beers that are not that don't have alcohol. It's not like another beer company that says, hey, they're going to have a couple token NA beers. The entire company, that's all they do. And in my opinion, there's nobody out there that does it as well as they do. So I don't know. It's a great time to not drink because you really have some great options now.
Yeah, no, it really does. We do. And something that I really enjoy is the fact that there's such good craft beers that are non-alcoholic that you could give them to a friend that drinks and they wouldn't even really, you wouldn't know the difference because they're that the quality is that amazing.
Yeah. And on top of that, what the company stands for, the way that they give back, it's very easy to support them. I mean, listen, I advertise for them without getting paid because I believe in what the company does. And I think it's just such a nice alternative for people that don't drink. I mean, I've heard other stories. These guys I don't think it was their intention, and I don't know that for sure, but they are literally changing lives of people, just giving them. There's a whole group of people that really like beer and now don't have, they can do away with all the negative effects of alcohol and still have the same stuff, man, same quality. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, and what I love about it is it's called athletic brewing, so you don't have to be the person that doesn't drink or is in sobriety to even have a non-alcoholic beer. If you're an athlete, these are great for you the day before an event. You still want to have your beer, but you don't want to have to deal with the drowsiness or the lag the next morning. These are a great alternative for that. I think that's what it's also amazing about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're gonna explode. There's no doubt about it. They're exploding. I mean, it's happening in real time now, but they are. I mean, they just took over Ballast Point Old Brewery out in San Diego. I mean, that's a big deal. Like these guys are truly growing quick. So I think it's cool to see it happen.
Yeah, it really is. And for me, I gotta support my New England home team fans there, and they're one of those from Connecticut. That's where they started. So definitely a huge supporter of them as well. And it's a great thing to definitely check out. So if you guys get a chance to check them out, check out Athletic Brewing. But hey, let's get into this conversation. I first want to do is typically we have a guest on this show, but you're a co-host, and the reason why is because you're a veteran. Let's talk about your time in the service in the Air Force.
Sure. Yeah. So I was one of those guys that after high school, I tried going to college, and I knew going into it, it was probably a lost cause. Like I was one of those guys that was not ready to be on their own. It just my maturity level, just a lot of different reasons. So after one semester in college, I was like, this isn't going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I ended up looking at the Air Force. Air Force for me, my father had been in the Air Force. My grandfather had been. I talked to my uncle. He was an Army Ranger, Special Forces. He was an instructor at West Point, and he said, Josh, what are you looking to go in? And I said, wow, I was thinking the Army. He's like, look, if you want to learn something, you maybe, playing war gets old. So I ended up going in the Air Force in 95. And I started off guarding nukes out in Minot, North Dakota. So that was my first station, was guarding these underground silos.
I bet that was interesting.
Yeah, for about 10 minutes. And then you're bored out of your mind. But it was still, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that could relate to it. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, we used to joke around that there was a good looking girl behind every tree. In North Dakota, it doesn't have a tree in the entire state barely. So, it was just the camaraderie. It was, I don't know. I think it's just a time. It's like this snapshot in people's lives. And, you're 19, 20 years old, surrounded by other 19, 20-year-olds, and you just make fun happen, right? So even though it was -40 out, the work was excruciating. It was just truly boring stuff. But we had a blast. So that's what started. I did a couple years in North Dakota. I was TDY to I went to right after Khobar Towers was bombed in Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
I I was TUI. I went to Saudi first, and then but I ended up in Kuwait. Spent some time in Kuwait.
Where in Kuwait were you?
Al Jaber.
Al Jaber. Okay. I went to Arajan.
Okay. Yep. So I went early. I literally was I was an E1. Somebody had gotten sick over there that was on a team, and they it was like last minute. They're like, hey, we need somebody to go. So I jumped on it, and I went over there. I had no stripes because I had no rank. I mean, I was as low as you could get. And I was telling people that I was going in sterile because I didn't have any name tapes because I went last minute, that I was on some secret, just joking around. But yeah, 96, in 1996, I think I was there.
Wow.
Came back after North Dakota. I went to Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. And I was there for a year and a half. And then I ended my time at McClellan Air Force Base, which is now closed. It was out in Sacramento.
Okay. Now, was it just in a contract you decided to get out, or you didn't have any desire to make it a career?
No, I did. I had dreams of becoming a combat controller in the Air Force. And anyone who doesn't know what that is, it falls under Air Force Special Operations. They're like forward air controllers. They go through some really brutal training. At the time, they went side by side with pararescue. That was their selection process. When I was at McClellan Air Force Base, I tried out. I got injured during selection. They sent me back to McClellan, and before I could go back and try again, they said your time's almost up. You've already extended once. You have to re-enlist before you can. We're going to send you back. And it was at that point I'd already been in close to 5 years, and I don't know. I just the thought of re-enlisting and not knowing that was going to be my job. I knew I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. I was with security forces. Started as security police. That's how old I am, and it changed over to security forces, and I knew I didn't want to do that for another 4 years. So right or wrong, man, I punched out.
Yeah. Well, hey, obviously it's the right. Can't look at it as the wrong because you're still here and you're still doing great things. So it definitely was the path that you needed. We just didn't know it at the time. Same with me. I planned on doing a career. I unfortunately wasn't allowed to re-enlist because of they were downsizing the service. But I was very disgruntled at the beginning of that. But I look at it as an opportunity now because I wouldn't be here right now if I had tried to make that a career. I'd still be in the Navy. So everything happens for a reason. So if something that happens to us isn't the way we want it, we got to look at it as there's something better out there for us. That's what we got to do.
For sure, man. Yeah.
But, I got to, since we're talking about all the services and stuff, and I know that you have your sobriety, did the usage of alcohol occur because of the service, or was that something otherwise?
I mean, it certainly was amplified in the military, but it was not caused by the military. It was promoted in the military, but I come from a long line of drinkers. So both sides of my family, alcohol was a part of my life. If it wasn't me drinking, it was somebody in my family drinking it from, that was every day. That was Monday through Sunday, holidays, good times, bad times. It was a staple in my life. So from the time I was 16, 17, it wasn't a big deal for me to have, some sips of wine or beer or something with dinner and it was always around me from the time I was 16, as far as even friends. I would say I actually started drinking myself around the age of 16. So no, I drank beforehand. But as you know, within the military community, it's certainly an integral part of it and ingrained in everybody. And then on top of that, you surround yourself with like-minded people. So if I was drinking a lot, I made sure I was around other people in the military that drank a lot too, because it's a lot easier to look at yourself in the mirror when everybody around you is doing the same thing.
Of course. So when you got out, obviously that same thing that everybody was doing is gone. You had to go through a lot of transitions and everything else, like the rest of us do. But did you start to notice, like when you got out or any of that your drinking was an issue, or did you kind of just keep going with life?
I mean, I knew it was an issue. I wasn't in the headspace to do anything about it.
Mhm.
But I would say it got much worse. And so I got out with really zero plans. I got out. I was living in Sacramento. I moved up a little north of Sacramento to this little town called Auburn, without any real job. I mean, I had these different jobs. Like I was putting in security doors for, like those big metal gate doors, like you'll see in like California in the not nice neighborhoods. It's almost like a metal screen door, but it's meant to, wow, it's meant to be able to leave open and not have your shit stolen from your house. That's what it's like. So I was putting these in for Home Depot.
Okay.
Yeah, but partying, I can't even say it's really partying. If you're just drinking by yourself, it's not really a party, right? I mean, so it's
Party of one, right?
Yeah. It definitely escalated because I talk about this on my podcast too, is I didn't realize how much of my identity was wrapped up with being in the military and the camaraderie and the brotherhood and when that's gone and let me go back a little bit. I enjoyed the military and I was good at being in the military. I am not good at being a civilian. And I found that out. I'm a guy who needs structure,
Mhm.
and within structure, I'll excel. Without it, I kind of self-destruct. And I was tricked into thinking that I had gotten myself together enough within the military that I would be able to get out and keep that discipline. And I was truly wrong. So I had a really rough time when I got out and living in California. I would say to get to actually answer your questions, my drinking got much worse, and I knew it, and I was just not in the place to do something about it at the time.
So when did you realize that you needed to make the change for that habit?
Well, that's a process. I think like for most people, it's not. Well, maybe for some people is an exact time, but for me, it was a process. So even moving. So I'm living out in Sacramento. I'm living a not healthy lifestyle. I'm surrounded by people that are dragging me down. And I was invited to a wedding back east. One of my good friends from who's living in Annapolis was getting married, and I flew back east, and I was around truly positive people, like people that loved me, people that were doing something in their life, people that are kind of inspiring to be around. And I said, "That's it, man. This is what I need." I flew back. I sold everything I owned. I mean, I literally at like a pawn shop. Packed everything I had up into a Jeep Wrangler, which tells you I did not have very much, and drove from Sacramento across the country. It's my vision quest is what I call it, because it turned into such an epic journey where I'd gotten like super sick along the way. First of all, I'm driving a Jeep Wrangler with a soft top, and right by Oklahoma City. Now it's cold, man. It is cold. Oklahoma City, the top rips off in the wind.
Ooh.
And yeah.
That's not a good day at all. That's not.
No. And so now I'm in like a North Face, like cinched all the way up where just my eyes are showing. I have my dog with me. That was my staple. My dog Sherpa was wrapped up in a negative 20-degree sleeping bag, and but I got super sick from driving like this. And I so sick where I was stuck in a hotel for 3 days with like a crazy fever. I didn't eat. I swear I was hallucinating at some points. So that's why I call it my vision quest. What was supposed to take, a couple days to do ended up taking me like a week and a half to finally make it back east.
Wow. But as you call it, vision quest, I bet you learned a lot about the transition, because this happened when you got out. So this was what, 2001?
Yeah. This was 2001. Yeah.
Now, man, I did a cross country trip, so I understand the adventure side of that. Being sick during it or being freezing in a Jeep, you're stronger than me, I think. But, it was, so from 2001, you were already kind of in this position. So what took until 2019 to start your sobriety? And what pushed you forward to it?
I would say just a whole bunch of small bad decisions. You and I talked. I compare it to like being murdered with a wiffle ball bat, where it's just like these little hits over and over. But it takes a while. It takes a really long time. And it was coming to the point where it was actually truly starting to affect my life. And we talk about identity. I talked about before. Like I have this identity of a father and a husband and a provider for my family. And the more I started examining the role that alcohol played in my life, the more I realized I was compromising all of these things. That if I were to say get a DUI, well, I could lose my job. So now I'm no longer a provider. If I'm making bad decisions, if I'm drinking when I should be hanging out with my kids, well, I'm no longer a father that I should be, right? That's compromise. If I'm making bad decisions in my marriage, well, that's a bad, that's compromise. And then the other part, and this is a huge part for me, is I grew up around alcohol. That's all I knew. And it was like this set of blueprints that I was given that showed me how to live my life. And I was passing those same blueprints on to my kids. And, my son one time had said, like, he was in class and they were talking about your favorite drink. And I don't know, something comes up and he's like, my dad's favorite drink is beer or something like that. And I'm like, oh man, that hurts. Like that was reality. So I had tried before. I tried quitting on my own and I was never successful. I'd even tried going to meetings before. And I think one of the things that a lot of people do when they first go to meetings, if their consequences haven't been huge yet, is you start separating yourself from everybody else. You start looking at all these people, you're like, oh man, these people got real problems. Not me. Like me, I haven't had, but if you haven't had those problems, that check's in the mail. Like it's going to happen to you sooner or later. And I've just been lucky so far. So,
yeah, actually, I went to AA and NA meetings, and we all do that. I think we get there and we're like, I'm doing a lot better than those people, or I'm not as good as this guy. But usually the ones that are speaking are the ones that have had those really tough times. So you're just like, man, I'm really not that bad off. And for instance, like stealing and all these different things that people have to do to fill that fix that they need. I was like, man, I never really had to do any of that. I always had the money. So
yeah.
I was like, maybe I don't have a problem, but obviously I did. So
yeah, that's what you have to remember, right? Like, a lot of people, you do stuff like you say you have money. Like I would drink good beer, I would drink good wine, I would drink good bourbon, and I would, for whatever reason, a lot of people that do that think that it's okay because it's the good stuff.
Yep.
It's
not the plastic bottle stuff.
Yeah, I'm not there. Now I've been there. I might not have been there at current, or at the time I was going to quit. But so yeah, I think the important thing is to go, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't really stop myself. And here's a group of like-minded people that are able to do it. So let me not separate myself from them and actually maybe jump on board and go, hey, I'm just like them. And we'll try and figure out how it goes from there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's how we have to do it. So it's, let's, I want to get really into the podcast and how that started. So let's take a quick break and we'll get into that after this break. Are you looking for that beer that fits your active lifestyle? Maybe a beer fit for running, a brew fit for hiking. What about that beer league that you're in? A brew fit for backflips, a beer for surfing, biking, and skiing. One fit for workouts or rest days. Maybe you're looking for that chill time beer. time to hang out with friends drink. Regardless of the reason, Athletic Brewing has the beer for all times. Brewed without compromise, enjoy craft beers without all the alcohol. Get 20% off your first order with code capital RWD20. Link in the description. Now, back to the episode. And we're back. I want to share some quick facts before we get started. 40% of our actions are not even conscious decisions, but habits. So habits are a big part of our lives, and a lot of the time, we don't even notice them. We are a sum of all of our habits, good or bad. Don't give up trying to change, though. It takes an average of 66 days before a new habit takes root in our brain, and the habits never truly disappear. They're just overpowered by other habits. The one habit that corresponds most closely to us, finding happiness and being satisfied with our lives overall, is often the one we practice least, self-acceptance. What are your thoughts, JT, on why so many of us struggle with self-acceptance? And you know what? I'll even do this. I'll let you think about that real quick, and I'll tell you my self-acceptance issues.
Okay.
You know, so many people see me as a person that's doing great things and making change and doing these awesome achievements, I guess is the best way to put it. But every day, my mind tells me that I'm not good enough. And I've learned over the time that I do this, and my habit has changed to the point where I use that struggle that I have, the lack of self-acceptance that I allow myself, to be my inspiration to doing it better. For instance, I told everybody I was doing this podcast before I even put headphones on. So for me, it was this idea of doing it was easy, no problem, I can do this. As soon as I put the headphones on, I was like, you're not good enough to do this, Dan. Just walk away before you even mess up. And I literally sat there. I got better. I keep getting better every episode, every day that I work on it. Every day I put a headphones on and get on the microphone. I do my phone calls nowadays, literally sitting here in the studio with the headset on and just getting my voice better. And I can tell you there's so many changes already because I've turned that the lack of self-acceptance into self-acceptance by, you know, now I used to have to keep my mouth literally right on the microphone. I had to be right here. But now I'm actually like a foot away from the microphone. My voice is projecting better. I am actually becoming a podcaster. It's crazy to me. So sorry, now that I've given you some time to think about it, what are your thoughts on why we struggle with self-acceptance?
Well, I think it's one of the same reasons that I've struggled with alcohol misuse is I've chased quick pleasures for a good part of my life, right? And that overall does not build a solid foundation of being proud of yourself. I'm ADHD. I was diagnosed as a kid. I never did anything about it. My parents didn't really do much about it. I did really shitty in school. Barely got by. And so I grew up thinking I was lazy. I grew up thinking I was not smart. The military made me feel good for the first time in my life, where I was getting awards and I was feeling really good about myself. And then I was left to my own devices, and it all fell apart again. And in my head, my hand had to be held at all times. Otherwise, I just wasn't responsible enough. I didn't have enough ambition. I didn't have enough discipline. And that's a word that really resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'm the same way. I mean, even with the podcast has been the first thing in my life that I've wanted to do work-wise, that I enjoy truly. I love, it's a passion. I love doing it. So why we struggle with that, I don't really know for sure. I know it's just taken for me, even through sobriety, of feeling a sense of accomplishment, of going through stuff and coming out the other side. And the more that we do that, the more we change these habits and see that we're capable of more, then I think those things start going away. But I was telling you on the phone, was it yesterday? I'm struggling now. I've been struggling for a couple of weeks. of bad habits coming back in. And I think the difference is the more you analyze, the more you have like emotional awareness and you realize that, hey, I'm not in a good place. You know, maybe I yelled at somebody on the road today, and that's not because they cut me off. You know, they may have, but I'm not in a good place. I have no patience for people today. It's not them, it's me.
Mm.
I feel like I'm getting somewhat better at that, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, JT, if you ever need someone to talk to, my last name's Heard, so I'm here to let you be heard. All right. And I tell people that all the time. It's important to get into that habit of talking about your feelings and talking about what's going on in your life. And sometimes you don't even know what it is, but just talk about what's going on, and sometimes you can figure it out. So that's definitely important. You talked about ADHD. I definitely want to bring this up because I just recently did an episode with ADHD. So if you haven't checked that one out yet, check it out. It's episode 5. And it was really a great episode. And, you know, luckily you know about it now. But for people out there that don't have a diagnosis of ADHD, but have always had those same issues where they feel like they're lazy or they're not able to stay focused or any of those things, that episode may be something really interesting to check out. But you know, it's definitely important. It's definitely important to find things to accomplish, to help build that self-acceptance up. Do you think that's why you started the creation of the podcast? Is to obviously you started it during COVID, but was that because stuff was stirring up on you, or what was the reason why you started the podcast?
Well, there was a bunch of different things that kind of fell into place. So I was hosting a podcast for a performance drink called Killcliff, and I had a co-host, and I built a studio in my house, and that was starting to go away. Like COVID was really affecting the company, so the podcast was kind of going away. And yeah, I was left with a lot of time on my hands, and one night I just came down to my basement where the studio is. Everyone else was asleep, and I just started talking. I said, I'm going to make a teaser for a podcast I didn't really think I was going to do. And I came up with the name of Consequence of Habit because, you know, I say in my teaser, the consequences of my habits was I almost lost some of the most important things in my life, right? Like I almost lost, I don't want to get, but like some of my things that I cherish the most.
Absolutely.
And so I just started talking about it, and I just started like saying it on the mic, and I put it out as literally like a 5-minute thing. And then I started getting feedback from other people going, oh, dude, I completely get it. I'm in the same boat. I'm trying to do the same thing. Like I'm struggling with my drinking, or I'm struggling with whatever, or I'm ADHD. I felt the same way. And it was that when that tapped into something, I'm like, oh, well, dude, I have an opportunity. Like this, what this is an opportunity to help people tell their stories. Like I've told mine. Let's build a venue, kind of like what you're doing, for other people to tell their stories, because it's through that. That's the important part, man. It's just getting the stories out to as many people as possible. And so people that are struggling through something, they hear it and they go, oh man, I'm not alone. And there's another side to this.
Yes,
I can get through
it. Yes, there is. And, you know, I think that's now, for instance, going back to when we did our podcast together, you didn't really look in. Typically, you do a lot of research, you told me, but you didn't really do any on me.
No.
To be honest, I don't even think we talked about my sobriety at that point. I think you learned about that during the episode.
I did, because it was a really quick turnaround. I was trying to catch you. I think you were stopping somewhere, and I mean, I think you reached out. You had listened to Mason's, and you'd maybe hit me up on Instagram or somewhere, and then it was like literally the next day or maybe 2 days after that we ended up making it happen. Which, yeah, that's and I didn't know much about you. And, you know, I saw your website, and I saw what your main cause was, and I don't even think I knew you were a veteran. I don't think I knew you were a veteran at the time.
I don't think, well, to be honest, I don't think we knew, or I didn't know a lot about you at the time for sure, other than that you were the host. And I know you didn't know much about me, but we learned a lot about each other since then. And it's been really an interesting way to do anything, to have that connection built. So that's why it's even more of an honor to have you on my podcast now. But do you think that doing all these interviews that you were doing with everybody and the not maybe not I don't know if they were, I haven't listened to all of your episodes, but I'm sure a lot of them have to do with like success stories that maybe weren't success stories at the beginning. But do you think that doing the podcast is what inspired you to take it to the next level that you're in the process of doing now? Let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So yes, I started listening to these people's stories and I go, all right, so we have a podcast. There's people who are talking about it. And I was listening to a podcast by Sam Harris, and they were talking about other ways to give back through different charities and growing support and using our money in a way that's most effective. And I said, all right, well, how can I incorporate that into getting everybody's message out to more people? And then if there are donations coming in, how can we allocate those to the causes that I believe are really important and things that resonate with the idea of consequence of habit. So I'm in the beginning stages. I filed a nonprofit with the state of Delaware. I'm halfway through my application for my 501(c)(3), and with a goal of, there's a couple different things. It's one is to get the message out to as many people. And as you know, through podcasting, sometimes that takes, there's a monetary aspect to that. I mean, this is a saturated, I forget what the number of podcasts are out there now, but there's a lot.
There's a lot, especially after this year.
Yes.
This past year.
Yeah. So it's to get that message out to as many people. And then two is to actually physically give money. So personally, I can look at the military and the first responders and go, okay, these guys have learned coping mechanisms while in service that are not serving them on the outside. I'm a prime example of that. There's people who have seen a lot worse things than I've seen that are struggling either with PTSD, which a lot of times comes along with that comes addiction issues, self-medicating. All right, so how can we help those groups? And then just in general, just addiction, mental health in general. And then I have it in my own passion of an environmental side. So I have on, like I had this guy, Robert Swan, who's first guy to go to both poles. He's on an expedition right now to go to Antarctica to bring, to try and save Antarctica. So there's a bunch of environmental things too. So I'm kind of all over the place, but those are my three big things that I'm trying to raise awareness and hopefully some funds for also.
Nice. Hey, out of curiosity, that environmentalist that's doing the poles journey, you said you did an episode. On what episode? Do you know off the top of your head?
I can tell you right now.
All right. Yeah, because I definitely want to check that one out, and I want everybody else to hear about that. So is your focus, while you're looking that up, is your focus obviously your focus is veterans and first responders, but is that the entire focus or is that just a portion of the focus?
The veterans and first responders is a portion because not everybody I have on is veterans and first responders. And it's I found that's interesting and through this process is I'll talk to people from all different communities and they'll say, the military, they'll say, just like I said, in our community, being macho, not talking about your feelings, drink a lot if you're feeling bad, that's what's promoted. And then I was talking to another guy last week and he's a guy from a predominantly Black community. He's like, in my community, you have to be macho, you drink a bunch, you don't talk about your feelings. And that's how it's like all these different communities that think they've got the monopoly on not talking about feelings and self-medicating yourself. So it is not just for them, but that those groups are dear to my heart. And but there's, I would love recovery for anyone who's struggling. Anyone, I don't care what your background, whatever it is. But
I 100% agree with that. It doesn't matter where you come from. That's also what my organization does. A lot of people immediately hearing that I'm a veteran, immediately think that I'm doing it for veterans only. And then other people have actually decided not to reach out to me because they saw that I was a veteran, that it was that as well. And I'm telling everybody here, and I've told people this many times, is suicide doesn't just affect veterans or first responders. It affects all of us. And it doesn't matter our wealth, our religion, race, or political view. It'll affect all of us at some point. So my goal as well is if I can help prevent suicide, then I'm doing the right job. So, hey, what can we do to help get involved? What can everybody that's listening today? How can we get involved? To one, listen to your podcast. Two, to help to get this nonprofit going, and start getting contributions to you for that. What can we do?
Sure. So as far as the podcast goes, I've tried marketing podcasts for a bit now, and I found the most effective thing that you can do is literally just word of mouth. Like I've tried paying for ads on social media. I've tried a bunch of different ways. And the biggest thing is if your buddy tells you, "Hey, I heard this podcast, it touched me," or they had this guest on that I really resonate with. That would be the biggest thing, is just to check the podcast out. It's on all the major platforms. It's called The Consequence of Habit. If you like it, share it. If you could give me a rating, something, I don't care if it's good or bad, man. If you think there's work that can be done, please let me know. You check out the website, consequenceofhabit.com. From there, we can sign up. There's going to be a newsletter. If you sign up, there's extra content that where I just do solo stuff. And then from there, you also, please, if you have a story and you think that it needs to be told, either leave your information. If it's your buddy, your friend, a family member, do the same. Yes, shoot me an email. My email is jt@consequenceofhabit.com. Let me know their contact info, a little bit about them or your own story, and let's get you on and get your story out there as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And for everybody out there, even if you're not struggling, or let me take that back. If you don't think that you don't have a story, because you said if you think you have a story, even if you don't think you have a story, but you've had these situations happen to you where you've dealt with habits and you've changed your habits, come and talk to us about it. Even me, like if you come to reach out to me, I'll make sure JT gets it, because it takes. A lot of times we don't think we're worthy enough to share our story. Our story is not good enough, and that's not the case. Everybody has a story to hear and be told, and so I hope you guys get encouraged to go do that. JT, what is there a way that people can get? Is there anything that you have set up yet for maybe setting up for volunteers to be involved or anything like that?
So I don't. If you sign up for the newsletter, because volunteer things are popping up, if anyone has anyone hears it and has a legal background, because sometimes navigating that whole nonprofit thing can be tricky. So I've got some feelers out there right now with like people in Bunker Labs and other veteran organizations, but I'm trying to find somebody to give me some help on getting the 501(c) application completed and make sure it's done right the first time. So that process goes. One can only hope that it goes as fast as yours did.
Yeah, I tell everybody mine is very, very rare. When I filed my paperwork, I was told 6 to 8 months to get even a partial approval, and it could take up to 2 years for full approval. That's what I was told. I've never heard of anybody getting it faster than 3 months.
Yeah.
I got it in 20 days.
That's insane.
I don't know how. So very blessed that happened and that it's taken off as well as it has. And I'm always looking to grow as well. So if anybody's also interested in suicide prevention, always reach out. But for you, JT, definitely Consequences of Habit. I love the name of it. I love the idea behind it. I think that it's important to understand not just our addictions, but our habits in general. Especially with that stat, I didn't even think of it like that. 40% of our habits are not even like conscious decisions. We just accidentally do it. And the reason why it's so impactful is because, so many times we'll be like, oh man, sorry I did that. It's just out of habit. And you don't even think twice about it. You just move on. But if it's out of habit that you're doing it, maybe make those ideas, be aware of those changes and make those changes that are needed so that you guys can have the correct healthy habits, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny because it's either through however you do it. Like for me, you go through 12 step and you start to realize, hey, there's reasons for our actions. There's reasons we do the things we do. A lot of times it could be a defense mechanism or you fall into these unhealthy habits. But when you start to analyze them yourself and you start to give yourself like some self-acceptance and go, all right, yes, I've done A, B, and C. I'm not proud of it. There's probably some reasons behind it. These are the reasons. And now I want to make a positive change. I think when you do that, you have more empathy for other people around you. You have more patience for them because you see somebody acting out. You're like, you can almost just feel bad for them. You know what I mean? Like you can say, like, this person's not in a good place. And it will make your life, easier. And you'll find that there's a lot less conflict in your life.
Yes, and I 100% agree with that, especially within my own life. I've noticed a difference from 3 years ago before I started this cycling journey to now. So I can tell you that it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a week. It doesn't happen in a month. It happens a little bit, one little thing at a time, one day at a time, and before you know it, a new habit changes. So keep moving forward. Hey, JT, we're going to be wrapping this up, but something I do with every co-host or guest that comes on is you get the closing remarks. You get to talk to the listeners at this point. So the floor is yours.
All right. First off, I want to say, Dan, it's what you're doing. I mean, even when I had you on, listen to everybody else that tells you that what you're doing is fantastic and doing a great job, because you really are, man. I walked away from your conversation and I think I said it. Like, I didn't care if no one else heard it. The fact that we had the conversation, I was honestly just proud to have been part of it. So, and as far as closing comments, I will say, it's never too late to start checking, looking at your own habits and what you're doing. And, I talk about self-acceptance of just realizing that there are reasons for our actions. And the more that we start to examine those, you can start making these minute changes in your life, and it will literally change your life over a period of time. So that's it. That, and check out Consequence of Habit. And thank you, Dan, for what you're doing, man.
JT, it was an honor to have you on here. And for all the links, we'll have it all in the description below. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too, man.
Wow. That's episode 10 for Movement Monday. 10 weeks now, and many more to come. I hope you have and continue to enjoy every episode as much as I have. I personally think that I'm finally getting into a good routine of doing these. What did you think of Consequence of Habit? The start of a movement. Personally, I love it. We all got to start somewhere. Have you started? I'm excited to see how Consequence of Habit and JT continue to grow into the future. Go listen to the COH episodes and be inspired to change your own habits. Sometimes our routines turn into addictions. For me, podcasting is my new addiction. It replaced cycling for now, but I still crave the bike. Not all addictions are always that good. I've been on the other side too, but it doesn't mean we can't change. Remember, it takes time to make change happen. Take one thing at a time. Share your story of change to all. Till next week, get caught up on some of the Heart of a Volunteer Veterans podcast other episodes, veteran chats, specials, and sagas. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Heart of Volunteer Veterans podcast and show some love in the comments for the veterans. Every episode is Veteran Gold. Next week, we have another special guest, but you'll have to wait till then to find out who they are. Remember to have a good day. Bye, everyone. Copyright Heart of Volunteer Veterans Podcast 2021.